Hello everyone and welcome back. We are back in F1 2020 revitalizing the My Team career mode that we've got. We kicked it off early on the Xbox variant and kind of ran out of steam just because League got very competitive and very time consuming. So we didn't really have a lot of time to be doing the My Team stuff, the editing, but we're going to go ahead and revive it. And we have made the switch over to the PC version for a little bit of extra graphics. And of course, another nice reason that you will see under the sheet when we finally get to the car reveal. But you can see we are running the FRS Formula One team. It was up there in the top right just a moment ago. But we're also gone with the Mercedes power plant for our car. And of course, in the first season of My Team, durability is a big issue. We're going to try and minimize some of those grid penalties. We did set aerodynamics as kind of our biggest priority in the initial opening interview sequence. So that's got a little bit of an early boost. And of course, our teammate Mahavir Raghunathan in that second seat. So going ahead and taking a bit of a Mimi driver to go with the spirit of the FRS. Of course, we won't see a lot of the in-game sponsors on the car. We'll still be selecting them, Pacifico and their challenges to score 25 points in the season, 25 constructors points over the entire season for their bonus payout. We should be able to hit that as we develop the car. We might be just outside the top 10 the first few races, but we should start to get into position where we can develop the car and get into consistent points over the course of the season. But before we get to the timeline or the car reveal, we are setting up the activity timeline, trying to slot in and most well use our time. We're going with a power and durability focus to, again, just kind of help out with that durability, get the car moving in the right direction. Of course, we're also going to drop on that driver training camp. We're going to try and keep Mahavir alongside as long as we possibly can, and also try and improve him and work him till he's a competent member of the team. I'm going to go ahead and say if there is any qualifying where I come out behind Mahavir on pace, that is going to be a serious concern for me. But let's get ready to check out what is under the sheet, take the first look at the FRS Formula One team's first racing car. Of course, going into the PC versions, we have a custom livery coming up. And there you have it, powered by Mercedes, the first FRS Formula One team race car using the traditional red and blue color scheme of the FRS, along with that slate gray base. And of course, a few other shout outs up and down the car of Twitch channels, Spotify channels of friends of mine. So keep an eye out, check those out there. They're all real ones on there, so you can definitely see. And of course, a few inside jokes just from some of my friends' Minecraft times. We've got the Mysterio's cereals, which is named after one of our towns there. And of course, the carrot on the engine cover for Tritopia Farms, which is going to go ahead and power it in. And of course, on the rear wing, the Lo-Fi Hitmen, a YouTube channel, a band that I'm a part of, have been with my best friends for a very long time. So that can also be peeped on there. But just throwing some real-ish sponsorship out there as opposed to just kind of throwing in the spiritual sponsorship. And of course, Ellsworth J, ETV, Phyllis Cypher, all three projects of one man who is extremely talented rapper, gamer, and actor. Has got plenty of representation on the car as well. Has lended his icons and his name to helping to bring the car to life a little bit better. But we're in the garage now after all the practice sessions, getting ready to head to qualifying. It looks like it's going to be overcast, but we are fortunate enough in Australia to be looking at a dry session. So hopefully it can stay dry throughout, and we won't get caught with the Xbox curse that I had in the last season where we had tons of problems with rain. But here we are winding the car up for the first flying lap of the season on this green track in Australia. The sun's down just a little bit, casting some long shadows. We're going to go and pitch it into turn one and just kind of gingerly get on the power. We could carry a lot more speed through there, I think. But it's just a matter of getting a feel for the car. Of course, we've run the first and second practice sessions. It kind of did most of the challenges, most of the practice programs in there. We are running on a 105 difficulty, 103 to 105 is where it'll kind of span. I believe it's on 105 for this race, although I may have made some tweaks around. So we'll keep it in that range just because we are also going with, as you can see in the timer, 15 minutes left of this qualifying session. Much like the FRS, the league itself, we are running a short qualifying session, a 18-minute session. We aren't going to mess around with Q1, Q2, Q3. We're going to get right into the action. And we are also running 50% race distances. So just like the league in that regard as well. And now you can see in the rear view mirror there, we've got a Renault catching up right behind us as we're coming into turn 13, a little deep, a little bit of lockup, and that's Daniel Ricciardo right behind us on a flying lap of his own, but we're on a flying lap, so we're under no obligation to get out of the way. Unfortunately, it's going to be costing him a little bit of time, but he didn't leave really enough space behind, especially with a much faster car at this stage of the development. I think you start the season roughly in the fourth worst car there, so fourth from the bottom. But we initially cross the line and we get back ready out for our second flying lap. P19 overall is where we are after that first one. Australia, not one of my stronger tracks, one I've struggled with in seasons 1 and 2 in the FRS. And also, if you've seen some of my older career modes or my teams, you've noticed I've always started pretty much towards the back of this one. So definitely a track that I tend to have a bit of a struggle on. The AI seems to be particularly quick around here as well, though, but you can see we've gained about a tenth through the first corner there, although we were a little early on the brakes, so we're losing it through turn 3 there. And now it's just kind of hovering right around that green delta, a little bit better through turn 4, but oh, big oversteer moment through turn 5, and the back end snaps out on us. So we're going to go and flip the engine down into the lean mix, turn off the ERS, start recovering a little bit of battery. We had that moment early enough in the lap where we can go straight out for another shot. Now, you'd think probably don't want to be using a set of tires twice. However, we aren't being projected to be inside of the top 10 qualifying in this session, so we're going to get some free tire choice anyway, so I'm not too worried about taking too much life out of the tires this first time around. Big lockup down into turn 3. We've gained a little bit of time on our previous best lap, although not so good through turn 4, and we're losing that delta all the way to the first sector split, and we're actually going to be behind by 0.02 of a second our previous best lap, and another lockup, and we're losing even more time. However, we had a pretty untidy run through turns 11 and 12 the first time, and even getting on the power out of turn 10 here. So we've got the opportunity to gain some time, and you can see already that delta tripping down as we get the power down much better out of turn 10, only about a tenth and change down. And now we're going to see how we can handle turns 11 and 12. Try and carry as much speed, use the downforce. Back end tries to get away a little bit of a sawing correction just to get the back end under control. And we're up just barely on the delta, although still red through the first 2 sectors. But it's all going to be about carrying speed through these final few corners to make it up. We're now nearly 2 tenths up, 3 tenths. Bit of a lockup there into the penultimate corner. So that's going to cost us a bit of time. But getting the power down out of the final corner, we're going to gain time all the way to the line. We'll see if that's going to be enough to improve us up the grid as we cross the line. Only 1 slot up to P18, but only about 1.5 tenths behind Giovinazzi in 16th. So here we are winding up for the final flying run of the session here. 1 minute left to go. As you can see, the track very busy ahead. We tried to get out ahead of the crowd, but enough late enough to where we weren't going to catch the tail end of that train, those Williams at the very back, as they get ready to start their flying lap. But improvement through turns 1 and 2, about 0.5 tenth there, should be something we can try and carry throughout the entire rest of the lap. Now, a little early on the brakes into turn 3, you can see us losing that delta on the way in, but gaining a bit on the way out as we carry a little bit better speed. We're just about flat to our previous time, though, as we come through turn 5, and are just about 0.5 tenth up, 0.07, just nearly, 79 thousandths through sector 1. But you can see big improvement through that next section of corners, now nearly just over 3 tenths up as we head to turns 9 and 10. Now just all about getting that power down smoothly. It's a bit of a slick surface on power there. You can really step out the back end even in 4th and 5th gear if you get a little too aggressive on the throttle. Now just full commitment, trying to send it through turns 11 and 12 there. And we ran just about flat to our previous time. So we've got 2 green sectors, 2 personal bests as we head into the final sector. A little bit of a lockup, a little slow through turn 13. And now turn 14, trying to carry that speed, get on the throttle as early as possible. And now the critical final 2 corners. That hairpin we've gone very deep on. You can see us losing a bit of time on the delta. But most importantly, we're wide on the exit of the final corner. You see that delta flip to the red. and we are not going to improve in this session here. We're going to go ahead and cross the line and stay P19.
And with qualifying complete, let's review our top three today. Bottas, Hamilton, and Max Verstappen. Goodbye for now then, but we're really just getting started. Make sure to join us again for Lights Out tomorrow.
And nobody in that final flying lap was able to take that P19 away from us, so we're starting towards near the back of the grid.
Rumor and speculation all come to an end today as we return to Melbourne for the opening race of what promises to be an enthralling season. Welcome along then to the Australian Grand Prix. Just south of Melbourne's downtown business centre is the one and only Albert Park circuit. 3.3 miles of public roads, closed for the weekend of course, make for a bumpy circuit with little undulation. There are 16 corners around the lake and a couple of good passing opportunities here as well, thanks in part to the DRS zones into turns 1, 3 and 13. Can Mercedes start with victory in their bid to win a 7th consecutive Constructors' title? Could Ferrari or Red Bull establish an advantage early on? And with 22 cars on the grid, how quickly can the new team find their footing? Well, it's great to be back, Anthony Davidson. We've got a lot to talk about this year.
That's right, Crofty. It felt like a long winter, but it's good to finally be back. I have to think the usual suspects will battle it out at the front, but there are always going to be some teething problems early on in the season, so whoever can keep on top of their issues will have the advantage today.
As I mentioned earlier, we're up to 11 teams this season, with a new entry run by, well, of all things, an owner-driver. That's something we haven't seen in this sport since Hector Raback over 4 decades ago. So how are they looking so far?
Ever since their participation was announced, there were questions being asked about whether an outfit like this could survive, and certainly it's proving to be a trial by fire so far. Let's hope they can continue to draw in investment and find a little more pace as well.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Perez, Alexander Albon, and Ricciardo, Vettel, Leclerc, Sainz, and Daniel Kvyat, Ocon, Stroll, Pierre Gasly, and Magnussen, Russell, Raikkonen, Antonio Giovinazzi, and old-timer Norris. They've taken a grid penalty. Grosjean, Raghunathan, and Nicholas Latifi. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
Well, it's good to see Raghunathan not in P-last in a one-place bump thanks to Norris taking a grid penalty. But here we are with the 5 red lights up and out, and we get off the line decently, pulling alongside the Alfa Romeo of Giovinazzi. You can see from our fuel mix, we're running fairly light on fuel here, trying to get as much lightweightness in as we start off the race, try and get a good launch. It actually helps out quite a bit against the AI if you're under fueled. And now it's just going to be a matter of trying to run good pace and fuel save where we can throughout the race. We are planning on making a one-stop strategy around here. Softs onto the hards should work as we are battling side by side with the Alfa Romeo of Raikkonen. And finally, he has to yield and get out of it. We've moved up to 15th after the first few corners. So now we've got our sights set on the Haas of Kevin Magnussen in front of us, who is kind of the last of this tail group. The Racing Point of Lance Stroll, both of the Renaults ahead, should start to streak away. But we are looking to come in on around lap 9 or so of this 29-lap race to make that one-stop strategy work. Overcast scheduled for the race, no rain expected to come in. So it's just going to be a matter of managing our tires, managing that fuel gap that we've got to try and make up here. We can run a fair bit of time in lean mixture through the more twisty bits, kick it up to rich mix as we hit some of the straights, and then back down to lean into the braking zone. So a fair bit of fuel management. It's typically how I drive in the league races as well. But you can see we're just trying to pitch it in, use that extra grip that we've got in the big concertina up in front of us. We weren't really in position to take advantage of it there. We'll see if we can get a good run off the final corner and get the power down and make the move, try and move up another position into turn 1. You see, as we're not really in position to make a big lift and coast there down into turn 1, it's going to be another one of our strategies to try and save some of that fuel over the course of the race. As we're tucked up behind another car, if we're not really in an overtaking position, we can go ahead and use the slipstream, try and save some of that fuel. We'll jump ahead now to lap 5. Stroll has taken off, has about 2.5 seconds on Magnussen ahead, and here we are in the DRS trying to close up, make a move to have a look to the inside. Magnussen, big lockup, but just cuts right back to the apex, not close enough for us to make a move down there into turn 13, but now we're going to try and keep it as close as we can, try and get as good of a run as we can out of the final corner. It's been one of my weakest points on this track is this final corner. You can see we're running a bit wide and how much gap Magnussen has opened up just getting on the throttle, but the rich mix is on. The overtake is on, DRS open, not quite close enough right here into the braking zone of turn 1. We're going to try and get a good run out of here, use the slipstream. We're going to try and make that move now into turn 3. We're having a little look to the outside. Magnussen looks to cover the outside as we dive to the inside. Magnussen parks it right in the center of the road there, and we aren't able to stick our nose up, and we have to kind of react to avoid any kind of collision there. Now, may have had the opportunity to really send it up in there if we had committed to that inside, but we just kind of parked it in the middle of the track, and we weren't able to make that move stick. And we are playing in this 50% distance. We are also keeping a personal rule of no flashbacks. So even if the AI does something particularly foolish, we have to kind of account for that. We're just going straight through to the end of these races to try and carry it. But now we are stuck up, and after having a really good overtaking attempt kind of foiled, we've fallen a little bit back. We've had to give up a bit of ground. We are on lap 6 now of the pit window here, so we are looking at maybe starting to think about the undercut strategy here, maybe coming in on lap 8 as opposed to lap 9 and see if we can make that strategy work. You see in the overcast conditions, not having to worry too much about tire overheating. It is just going to be all about trying to keep some life in there, but of course, as you follow very closely to a car in front, you're going to have a lot more sliding of the tires, and you can burn up those tires even more. So we're dropping back a little bit, still utilizing the DRS, but trying to get right back up into the gearbox, see if we can have another attack. But I think if we try and make another attack that doesn't come off, we're going to just have to drop back for a lap or two, save a little bit of tires, get them in the window, and then push really hard and go for an undercut strategy. You can see we can get all over the back of him through the more twisty bits of the track, but just not in a position to make an overtake happen. But here we are jumping now to lap 8, and we are going to trigger the early pit stop onto the undercut strategy. So here we are. Magnussen stays out. We are into the pits. You got Verstappen on the soft tires, so a couple of the front runners looking for the 2-stop strategy here. But we are going to go ahead and grab a set of the hard compound tires as a few more front runners are just ahead. See, no wing changes needed here. Take those tires off, new tires right back on, and back out we go. And now we're going to have to try and get temperature into these tires and also push nice and hard to make sure that this undercut comes off. So we get the power down, headed to the pit exit, turn it into turn 1, and just get back on the throttle. Still kind of being a bit ginger, putting the power down as we want to make sure not to slide. The colder tires, the hard tires, can be a little bit slick your first lap around. But here we are jumping now, lap 10, as we are coming around. We've done our whole out lap, another lap, and looks like our teammate is in, Ragunathan is in, but also looks like Kevin Magnussen looks to be in the pits on the mini-map there. There's the gray dot there. We see him coming out just now, and as we streak on by here into turn 1, it looks like we have indeed made that undercut stick. He gave us an extra lap to play with, and you can see based on our battery level and the amount of fuel that we had compared to our pit time and where we are now, we really didn't save too much. We were pushing pretty hard to try and open up that gap and make that undercut work there. But now jumping to lap 13, Magnussen has closed up the gap. George Russell has jumped out of the way in the Williams. Looks to be on a 2-stop strategy. He was on the mediums there and coming in once again, although he may have started on the mediums actually, and is going for that 1-stop. But also you see a Lando Norris there in the timing sheet up at the top left there. Very much out of position for the McLaren driver. He picked up damage on the first lap, had to come in, make a wing change, and that's kind of the danger of starting towards the back of the grid there after taking that penalty. He just got into the thick of it and got into a bit of trouble. We do have just ahead of us Ricardo and Ocon, who are about 5 seconds up ahead and having much better pace than we've had all weekend. So really our battle is just looking at the cars behind us. We're just about the halfway point. You can see we've got about a half less fuel than what we need. So still a bit of saving to be done, but overall we're in a pretty decent position. So we're just trying to save fuel where we can, use the overtake, try and get some of that battery back in so we can defend down the DRS straights when we need it. But you can see we're flipping it into that lean mixture a fair bit earlier than normal. But here is the next kind of overtaking opportunity. Here comes Magnussen with the DRS open down into turn 13, but not quite there. But stalking behind is the McLaren of Lando Norris on that set of hard tires he's been going long on. Might be able to stretch those all the way to the end of the race. I believe his teammate Carlos Sainz is on a 2-stop strategy just ahead of us and is on the mediums, and looks like he may be having to make another stop. But here with the overtake on, no DRS to help us. We're streaking down that front straight, and we have enough straight line speed just to keep the Haas of Kevin Magnussen behind us, although it seems to take turn 2 a lot better than us. And now setting up a run down into turn 3. We were just kind of taking the racing line. We aren't making too many defensive moves. Big lockup, though, on that front right down into turn 3. And that is going to cost us a little bit of wear as we're trying to manage the tires. We did come in a couple of laps earlier than some of the other cars, so we do need to stretch this stint out a little bit. But you can see already we've been able to run now is we're on lap 19 of 29. That fuel mixture down just in the lean and only about a tenth of a lap shy. But you can see in the rear view mirror, now we have not even the rear view mirror anymore. We've got the off-board shot. Both McLarens trying to chase us down. Still have that Haas as a bit of a blocker in the DRS train. Is not quick enough to really overtake us on the straights, but Carlos Sainz has dropped behind his teammate Lando Norris. His 2-stop strategy putting him now on the medium tires. So he's got to make it past his teammate on the hards, a Haas that's on the hards, and then he'll be able to have plenty of tire to attack us in a much faster car. But the McLaren's very much out of position this weekend, not having a particularly good go of it. We are forming quite the train here. We'll see what kind of a move, as it looks like Carlos still staying right behind in the train there. And it's just all about saving battery, saving fuel throughout the twisty bits of the track where they really have no opportunity to overtake me here. And then really just deploying it all down the straights, keeping them behind. We are outside of the points, but still looking to have good overall finishes. Even if they're not going to be points finishes, we want the good numbers. But here we go. Carlos Sainz now making the move, it looks like. No, that's Lando Norris having a look around the outside of Kevin Magnussen. That's gotten him out of position a bit, though. And now Carlos Sainz tucking up right behind the Haas as Norris is squeezed to the outside. The Haas stays to the inside. And it looks like we'll keep an eye on those T-cams as they're side by side through the penultimate corner. We'll see if Carlos Sainz is able to take that position away from Lando Norris. And it looks like he has managed to slip past his teammate as Lando went for a bit of an attack, and it didn't seem to have paid off. But now you can see on the timing screens, it is Sainz ahead of Magnussen. We have now fallen back to about 11.4 seconds off of Ricciardo in front of us, running 12th overall. And so we're just kind of settling in. 8 laps left to go. We're still in very good shape as far as our fuel is concerned, although we aren't able to save as much because we are having to defend so much and to try and build up a gap. We're going to have a little bit of a look at attacking lap times a bit as Kevin Magnussen and Sainz start to scrap a bit. We'll see if we can get ourselves and push a little bit to try and get outside of that DRS range over this next lap, but it doesn't look like we're really able to carry the speed that we need, although getting right on the border there. Just a quick look at the tires. They're in fine condition. You can see, though, just right about as they cross the detection point, about 9/10 behind, so nearly clearing that 1 second gap, and they're about to make up a bunch of time. But oh, yellow flags behind us, and that is Kevin Magnussen out of this race. So my bit of a rear gunner, who was being that DRS train cork in the bottle for those 2 McLarens, has dropped out of the race and is now parked it up on turn 13. No safety car deployed. We are still green flag racing. He's able to get it to a safe area of the track, but unfortunately now we've got Carlos Sainz on those much fresher, much stickier medium compound tires, and the DRS help behind. It's not going to be too much longer before he is able to make the move past us. Although Norris back into the pits looks to have had a bit of damage, or just has to get off those hard tires that he put on so early. But that is going to clear the way to Giovinazzi behind us. And now we're just kind of scrapping with Sainz. You can see in the rearview mirror not going away. And so we got 14 seconds to Giovinazzi behind us. And now we're just kind of looking if Carlos is able to get by us. We're not really going to have too much opportunity pace-wise to re-overtake him or fight back that battle. So we are in a position where we're going to look to potentially save the car, but we're not giving it up without a fight as we pitch into turn 9 and 10. Try and get the power down. You see that double quick short shifts all the way up to try and get as much traction down without that wheel spin. No assists being run in this one. No traction control, no ABS. And of course, no racing line, as you could see on your own screen there. So having to learn all of these circuits. But there's Carlos with the DRS to the inside. Carried so much momentum off the chicane of turns 11 and 12. And just no opportunity for us to defend. So we're going to go ahead and let him through. No chance to, no reason to really move to the inside of the track and hold him off there. And now we'll just go ahead and use this opportunity, as we have talked about in the introduction sequence. You know, durability and engine penalties are going to potentially be an issue for us over the course of this season. So
keep managing your tires.
With a basically an 11-second gap ahead, Sainz is going to run off ahead of us, and a 14-second gap behind us with only 6 laps left to go. We are in a perfect opportunity now to turn the engine down, just kind of keep it in that lean fuel mix, not put any more heat or revs on it than is necessary. And we're just going to go ahead and think about bringing the car home the rest of the way. As you can see now, they're not having to worry about that fuel mixture. We'll jump ahead now, lap 26 of 29. You can see on the fuel mix, plus 0.5 laps in lean basically the whole way around. Sainz 10 seconds out ahead of us. Giovinazzi has only closed up about a second or so in the last couple of laps. But yellow flags on the track map over there, and you can see Lance Stroll dropping now behind the Renault and behind the McLaren as Sainz is about to come through on the dot there. And that is Lance Stroll out of the session as well. So though we lost P12 to Carlos Sainz a few laps before, we're going to go ahead and get that back off of the retirement of Lance Stroll. So 2 cars retiring out of this race this far. We have the Haas of Kevin Magnussen and the Racing Point of Lance Stroll, both parking it up in the same area on the runoff of turn 13. And that is going to be the end of their races. But we've got 10 seconds in front, 10 seconds behind, and really nobody else around us. We're going to jump ahead now to the final lap of the race. Carlos Sainz 18 seconds out ahead, not able to close all the way up to Esteban Ocon in front and get into those points paying positions. Giovinazzi has closed to about 9 seconds or so behind us as we are just kind of tiptoeing the car throughout the rest of the track here, not being too risky with it, you know, avoiding curbing where we can, doing little lifts through turn 5, and of course keeping that engine mix down, because we are going to need those engine parts throughout the course of the season. Now, of course, we've got to take the first gearbox 6 races, otherwise we will incur a grid penalty. And now, unfortunately, races number 5 and 6 of the season are Spain and Monaco back to back. So we are likely going to have to take a grid penalty on the 4th race of the season, which I believe is the Netherlands at Zandvoort, which is a little easier to overtake on, because after this race we have Bahrain, then we have Hanoi and Vietnam, and then we should have Zandvoort, then Catalunya and Monaco. So unfortunately, we don't want to be taking a grid penalty at Catalunya, nor do we want to be taking one in Monaco. So we'll likely have to do a strategic power unit grid penalty, start from the back at Zandvoort. But we will see how they go as we come across the final corner. The checkered flag is out, and we bring home our first race of the season in P12.
All right, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
Another superb Australian Grand Prix comes to an end, and it's a thoroughly deserved victory. So Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it.
Even in F1 2020, you still get Amverbot on the podium, although in a different order. Valtteri Bottas, much like he's done in real life, taking that first win of the season in Australia.
And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. After today's performance, Valtteri Bottas secures the championship lead. Some amazing talents out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
I have to give it to Old Timer. They fought so hard and had incredible pace at times, so I don't think anyone else did a better job today.
Let's move on to the constructors. Mercedes moved to the top of the table. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
You see no purple times inside the top 10. It's actually Lando Norris who steals that fastest lap, keeping anybody from getting the points there. We'll go ahead and drop it back into the showroom, into the corporate headquarters here, as we finished off that a good season opener. A P12 in Australia is not a bad result, I would say. So now we've only got a couple of days of activity in order to set up before we get ready to send ourselves towards Bahrain. So as usual, we are kind of erring on the side, I think, of giving our second driver some action. So we'll throw in a little bit of simulator training for him to try and help Mahavir move his way up. And we've already got some work being done in the chassis and power unit side. We've got about 1,000 development points, so we're going to go ahead and go for a major development there and try and get a little bit more out of the aerodynamics. But otherwise, a pretty short and sweet bit of action. Not really going to spend too much money on the corporate side yet upgrading facilities. We're going to wait till we've got a couple of races in the bag and a few bucks in the bank before we really start upgrading. But looks like according to Carl, we've got the new parts ready to go for Bahrain, which will be the next episode coming up. But thank y'all for joining me back on this journey once again. It feels great to have a custom liveried car, so looking forward to having that throughout the season. We'll see some sponsors added and changed, I'm sure, as the season goes on, and potentially some special one-off liveries.